kingdom.
A very good morning and welcome to Kusile breakfast show. Sabawuthina namhlanje nikhethe nathi lo muhla kungolesibili. It's the 8th of August 2023. Lonvuselako ngulungelele Makakula. We're coming to you live from Hospital Hill in Mbabane. You can also watch the show on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. Mguni. How are you this morning?
Philile, njani Thombeni?
I'm well.
Doing very well, and I'm hoping that babukele emakhaya nabo bayaphila njengoba siphilana nathi lungelele. Happy to be on this program today yet again. Very grateful to the Lord Almighty for giving us another blessing to live nalomuhla. Lulu, a lot happened yesterday, but ngifuna siqale sibuke nje dihloko lethambe embili emaphephandabeni alomuhla sitaqala nge-Times of Eswatini.
Alright, so welcome back. Sitaqala kubuka i-Times of Eswatini kunesithombe lapha lesivelako kushe i-restaurant ye-Tandoori lapha eMbabane kanti ke damage le shile ilinganiselwa ku 600,000 emalangeni. More on that story on page 6. Kuletinye lethamba embili after vetting process 27 MP Tinvuna nominees out of elections race. EBC now working on mounting pictures, names of nominees who have passed vetting. Kuletinye lethamba embili DPM's office probes kids' participation in Swayoko rally. Kuletinye lethamba embili government's 3% COLA offer. Civil servants want 8.7%. Kanti kuletinye lehamba embili relief as bone specialists start work at government hospital.
Kutemidlalo Times of Eswatini le hamba embili ikhulumisa the Premier League season labathi khona ahead of this new Premier League season. Its senior players exodus at Birds lapho ke Nkomishi Samba Jive confirmed on list of Emma departures khona kuyileyo team leyo. Kanti ke lenye le hamba embili ithi Mavuso blackout is not our fault. Kusho ke i-Bible Society following ukuthi ke i-Bible Society said it distancile from the floodlights blackout experienced at Mavuso Sports Center kulempela Sonto lesibuya kuyo. Lenye ke lehamba embili ithi Green Mamba secures impetho for CAF. Lenye ke lehamba embili ithi Spurs reject Bayern's third Kane offer.
Lutamba embili Eswatini Observer this Tuesday spend Saku money wisely. World Bank advises against using funds on salaries, and there are calls for strengthening of the Anti-Corruption Commission. Stories on pages 2 and 3. Kuletinye lehamba embili cell phone theft suspect beaten at Luchu Festival. Kuletinye lehamba embili stranded patients finally attended.
Kutemidlalo ku Eswatini Observer lehamba embili ithi Birds release 4 players. Badlali ke labahanjisiwe labafaka ikhathi Sandile Nkomishi Gininza, Bashir Mutanda, Mohabed Kabia and Kolani Papi Sikhonze. Lenye hamba embili ithi Knowledge Ngwenya is new Birds Pro. Knowledge Ngwenya has been appointed as new Mbabane Swallows Public Relations Officer. Lenye lehamba embili ithi Denver Juwo liba officially Swallows players. Kanti ke yekugcina there is no stopping Black Swallows.
And news making headlines on the Eswatini Daily News. In Tabelhamba Embili lapha, there was blood everywhere. It was oozing from all parts of her body. Court case ke lesole qhubeka leyo ya Sharon lesole qhubeka khona enkantolo. Kulenye ihamba embili lapha ekoneni ATM bombers hid 50,000 emalangeni in KFC buckets. Kulenye ihamba embili 5 big parastatals to be privatized.
Kutemdlalo ku Eswatini Daily News lehamba embili ikhulumisa Pupu Skhonze Banele lokuthiwa ke soku Green Mamba's raider as he is looking to leave the club lebekasolo ayidlalela but ke indzaba lesasolo nje isakhulunyiswa leyo kanti ke bathi talented Swallows midfielder Banele Skhonze tipped to replace captain Xolisi Mkhonto at Green Mamba. Lenye lehamba embili ithi 27,000 emalangeni salary for former Bird star Kingu. Kanti ke lenye ithi England boot Nigeria out of World Cup. Leyo ke lekhulumisa indzabe emhlaba yabomake.
Right, kanti ke namhla on the show kungilesibili nje isitaba sinamlandvo Dlamini, who's the communications officer at Ministry of Home Affairs. Utabe ke yakhuluma ngekubhaliswa kwetitifiketi leti automated. Lovelako ke ukuthi litiko selikhokhe isinqumo sokuthi selitawuvala masinyane kwendela sibe titifiketi leti automated. Kanti ngoba ngabe solo usesena leso lesidzala sengeke usakhona kusenda lesisha kamelula. Le process seyitawucalelisa phansi ka lapho utawucalela phansi ubhalisele certificate. Kungaba certificate sekudala noma certificate sekuthathana. Sisabe sinaye ke emlandvo lesichazela kabanti ngaloko. Tiko ke liyayenda nemetama ukuthi isonzete lisito etinkhundleni lekubhalisa sive certificate tekudalwa ama IDs kanye nama marriage certificates. Le initiative ke lena ibitwa ngokuthi mopping up exercise. So bayachubeka nje nakuleli viki nakule nyanga. Lokho ke ngumsebenzi wacala lona eminyakeni lophelile. So sithabe sinaye emlandvo ukuchazela nje kuvane ukuthi nayo le process le ihamba kanjani. Sithabe sinaye at 6:30.
Kanti ke sitawuphinze sithole ke nema angithi nje ama reports laphelele la bekwe ke ngu World Bank itolo kulandzela ukuthi ke libhange lamhlaba iWorld Bank lithi kudeliver leSwatini lithuthukisa kangcono umnotho walo kufanele ke ukuthi lithuthukisa kangcono kuqiniswa imithetho lengamele inkampani kahulumende. The World Bank of Eswatini Economy Report reviews the role that SOEs can play in the government's effort to enhance economic performance. It also assesses both their contribution to the economy as well as their limitations to suggest directions for reform. Without significant reform, Eswatini is unlikely to achieve its economic and social aspirations, especially in this uncertain external environment. The government also recognizes the need for policy reform to unleash the private sector, as well as to improve the efficiency of state-owned enterprises. Implementing macroeconomic, business and SOE reforms could help Eswatini reach high income status before 2050. Policy options are based on 3 pillars, which include specific policies for both the short term, the medium term, as well as to address microeconomic pressures, unlock private sector investment, and enhance service delivery for inclusive growth. Stawova ke speech nje lesithulwe nguMary Francois, Mary Nelly lobukema office aka World Bank kuleli. Kanti ke nendvuna yetemafa Neil Reichenbach stayilalela. Sithi singabalalela bese sithola local economist Thembinkosi Dube asihlatiyele.
Right, it's 8 minutes after 6 o'clock. As Batlete Magisas where she's has at Nzabata Swati.
Umsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV utibophelele kuhlonipha nekulandzela umgomo wetekusakata loweluswe libandla letekuchumana eveni.
Ngephansi kwalomgomo sitimisele kusakata tindzaba letentiya ngaleso sikhatsi tindzaba letide magama lacosheme letitsembekile letitsintsa tonke tinhlangothi naletisebaleni
kusukela kutepolitiki, tetemphilo, tekulima, tetinkantolo netemhlaba wonke jikelele siniletsela tindzaba njengoba tinjalo ngaleso sikhatsi letenteka ngaso.
Kanzi kulomsakato siphindze sikulethele lonke luhlobo lwetemidlalo kusuka emidlalweni welibhola letinyawo kuye emidlalweni ledlalelwa ematafuleni kanye naleto letiqhamuka ngaphandle kwakuleli.
Leti tindzaba lowutiletselwa ngumsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV.
Mizuzu leshumi ibumbene insimbi yesithupha sithathe indzaba lapha ekhaya. Indlovukazi imhlekazi seyifike eveni laseQatar. Indlovu yemhlaba ifikele esikhumulweni setindiza iDoha International Airport edolobheni iDoha City. Lokungiyona inhloko dolobha yalo live leQatar.
Indlovu yemhlaba lesuka eveni leSingapore yaqhubeka nelihambo lwayo yefika eveni laseQatar yemukelwe ngetandla lethokomele ngesikhathi ifika enhlokodolobha iDoha. Mhlekazi wamaswati wemukelwe ngilonxusele elive leSwatini eveni leQatar lusibalukhulu uSotsha Dlamini. Luhambo lwendlovu yemhlaba lufika ngesikhathi lapho khona live leQatar lokulive lelicebile likhomba inshisekelo lenkhulu yekukhulisa ligalelo lalo lekubambisa live leSwatini etinhlelweni talo tekuqinisa inhlangothi tekuletha intuthuko. Ngetulu kwetvumelwano tayitolo lebevele tikhona kutsite eminyakeni lophelile lamave lamabili asayina tivumelwano tekusebenzisana elihlangothini lwetindiza lokudvumelwano letawulibambisa live leSwatini lisafaka umfutho ukuthi likhule kulolu hlangothi. Kusabukwe lokho emakhosi yelive afise kubona lamave akhweshisa imikalelo lengaba khona kuti abambisana ngalokuphelele nangakuletinye tinhlangothi. Emagcenzelweni emhlangano wesihlanu wakamhlaba wemave lesacathuta kutentuthuko lebe ubanjelwe khona edolobheni iDoha. Silo semhlaba inkosi Mswati wesithathu kusakhuthata kwakhiwa kwevumelwano tekusebenzisana nekwabelana lwati emkhathisini wetindzawo takulamave tetebuchwephesha netebucubungula. Indlovukazi mhlekazi singathwe bantfu benkhosi lekungumfanenkhosi Icethuka nemfanenkhosi Gcina, sikhulu Gija nendvuna yembuso sikhulu Ndlaluhlaza Ndwadwe namabhalane wesive Nhlanhla Dlamini. Lebika kwetindzabeni ngisandile Makhanya eQatar.
Liphini landvunankhulu Themba Masuku lithi nalo lilahle emhlane etinhlanganweni letisebentisa bantfwana emshucweni noma ngabe yaluphi luhlobo. Masuku ebekhuluma ngemuva kwekuthi lenye tinhlangano isebentisa umntfwana kulomunye umshuco lapha achaze khona kwekuthi uhulumende utawuthatha tinyathelo letifanele kulabo labenta lokho.
Wonke muntu akavikele bantwana. Singete sathi sibona abantwana konakala singete sabavikela. Akabete lo sonzeta abantwana enzaweni lapha bangahle balimale khona. Kusuke elithuthuva bagcotshwe bafe khona lapho, kusuke elithuthuva balimale, kusuke elithuthuva kujijelwane ngematshe. Lapha kuvama kuba nebantu mhlambe lasebanathile bakhuluma ulimi lolubi, foul language, khanze sebaphike bantwana beva letintfo letinhlamba letintfo letikhulunywe lapho. Akufuneki bekunene ukuthi sikuvumele lokho silive. Sitawo nakelela manje sibuke ukuthi si-investigate, siphenye letintfo letentekile lapha, sibone ukuthi umthetho kudeni lapha utawuthatha indzawo yawo khona nasesiphenyile sicedzile. Bantu abayekele bantwana bakhule, sifuna abantwana labacothu.
Live leSwatini selithole kudunyiswa ngenzima lelidlalile ekuboshweni kwaloyo bekasolakala ngekubulala abantu ngesikhathi sempi eveni laseRwanda lokungu-Fulgens Kayishema lobekakade abalekeleke kulela live.
Ngiyakusho kwalokhulumela hulumende olakuleli Alpheus Nxumalo olakuleli litfole kuhlonishwa inhlangano yakamhlaba i-UN International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals ekubambisana lokuhle lokwenteka lokwaholela ekuboshweni kwaloyo bekasolwa ngekubulala abantu ngesikhathi sempi yaka-1994 eveni laseRwanda. Libandla lenhlangano yakamhlabuhlangene lelibuke kushushiswa nekutfola lababaleke emaveni abo i-Prosecutor Fugitive Tracking Team kuse ngemsembuluko bavakashela lehhovisi landvunankulu lapho lifike labhoboka landlulisa kufokotha kwalo ngenzima leyadlelwa ngulakuleli ekuboshweni kwaKayishema losolwa ngekubulala abantu labendlula ku-2000 eminyakeni lengama-20 engcile eveni laseRwanda. Kayishema wake wahlala kuleli ngemuva kwekuthi acele kukhosela waboshwa eveni laseNingizimu Afrika endzaweni yasePearl lathi ngema-24 ngenyanga yeNgwengwetulu mnyaka losetulu kulandzela kubambisana emkhathisini welive laseNingizimu Afrika kanye nalehlangano yakamhlaba. Ngesikhathi lihlangene nelehhovisi landvunankulu lisekela lasihlalo kule nhlangano yakamhlaba Kevin Hughes ubongela kuleli wase uveta neshisakalo yokusekela leSwatini noma ngabe ngiluphi ihlobo okutshengisa kubonga kwalenhlangano eligalelo lakuleli ekuboshweni kwaKhaishema. Indvuna yelitiko letemtsetfo kanye nemtsetfosisekelo Pholile Shakhantu uthi lakuleli liyatfokota kutsi lasite ekuboshweni kwaKhaishema njengalokhu kunike imindeni leyalahlekelwa tihlobo tawo ukuthula ibe seyicela lenhlangano ukuthi isite lakuleli ngekucecesha labatolandzelela labo labakhosele. Tindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla kanti itfombe litfolakele ehhovisini laNdvunankhulu.
Libhange lemhlaba iWorld Bank lithi kude live leSwatini lithuthukisa kangcono umnotfo walo kufanele kuqiniswe imitsetfo leyengamele tinkampani tahulumende liphindze licinisekise ukuthi letinkampani tisebentela ebaleni liphindze-ke libukisise indlela letiphetfwe ngayo letinkampani. Lokhu kucuketfwe ngumbiko welibhange wekubuka simo semnotfo kanye nekusebenta kwaletinkampani lapha eveni. Lo mbiko wetfulwe libhange leWorld Bank ehhotela leHilton Inn eMbabane.
Kungakhuli kahle kwemnotfo kanye nekungayakhi kahle inzuzo leyanele kwetinkampani tahulumende ngilokunye lokwenta libhange lemhlaba lenta licwaningo kubuka kutsi letinkampani tingayakha kanjani inzuzo kute kukhule umnotfo live likhone nekubhadala kahle tikweleti talo. Lobuke emahhovisi kaWorld Bank kuleli Marinelli uthi bayethemba kutsi uhulumende utawutitsatsa atisebentise letincomo talo mbiko.
One of the key findings of the report is that both the kingdom and the SACO countries are trapped in a low growth path. So it's a very important, observation, and we hope that the report argues actually that the SOE reform, the state-owned enterprise reform, can be a key element to boost economic growth for the kingdom.
Indvuna yetemafa Neil Rickenberg ithi live selicalile kulungisa imithetho kute letinkampani tisebente kangcono.
And even though we need to do reforms, I don't want that to sound like our SOEs are necessarily all in trouble. That's not the case. We have I'll maybe even refer to one or two SOEs that are really performing very, very well, and I'll try and refrain from referring to any that are under the Ministry of Finance. So I'll use EEC as an example. EEC, when trouble hit with COVID, EEC was in profit-making territory. EEC was getting double-digit increases on the cost of electricity coming to EEC. EEC managed to cushion that increase and managed to pass virtually for 2 years during the peak, during the height of our pain as an economy, managed to cushion the increase in electricity tariffs through to the end consumer.
Lo mbiko uchubeka uvete ukuthi kute umnotfo usimame, leSwatini kufanele lichubeke nekufaka imali ku-SACO Stabilization Fund, lakhe lihlelo lwekunciphisa tikweleti talo, liphindze lichubeke nekubuka tindlela tekwenta ibhizinisi ibe melula kuleli. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelsiwe Dlangamandla kunasindiswa Zwane kanye nasikhumbuzo Dlamini eMbabane.
Sekuhlanyelwe tihlahla letitigidzi letisitfupha 6 million ngaphansi kwemkhankaso wekuhlanyela tihlahla letitigidzi letilishumi ngeminyaka lesihlanu. Indvuna yelitiko letekuvakasha nemvelo Moses Vilakati ithi lelitiko litibekele ligoli lekuthi lonke eLeswati libe nesihlahla kude live likhone-ke kumelana nemithelela yeguquguquka kwesimo selitulu.
Kude live laseSwatini likhone kumelana nemithelela yeguquguquka kwesimo selitulu, litiko letekuvakasha nemvelo ngeminyaka wa 2020 lisukumise umkhankaso wokuhlanyela tihlahla letitigidzi letilishumi 10 million ngesigaba lesingaba iminyaka lesihlanu. Kulomnyaka losetulu lelitiko kugubha lilanga lakamhlaba lemahlathi lisukumise lomunye umkhankaso wokuhlanyela tihlahla letisigidzi nencenye 1.2 million. Sicocisana nendvuna yelitiko letekuvakasha nemvelo Moses Vilakati ngemsombuluko ithi lemisebenti lemibili isahamba kahle.
Sibonga ke ukuthi live sive sisibambisile kakhulu tikolwa bemadolobha bemasonto betinkundla abantu bebabaningi labathi asibambise live ukuthi kuyiwe embili. Kulo 10 million asisho ukuthi namhla sesicishe sendi about 6 million. Ngilelo nalelo Swati ahlanyele nje isihlahla sibese ngoba isuka lapho lo 1.2 million uthe emaswati angu 1.2 nangabe munye namunye ahlanyele kutazisida kulelo langa nje nakuleyo mkhankaso lohambisana nalo 1.2 million sihlanyele ihlahla letinganga 920,020.
Indvuna iphindze ithi live lisebenta indzaba yekwakha indzawo noma lidolobha lekukhutsata kugcinwa kwemvelo empakeni pheceleti eco-city. Etindzabeni te-Eswatini TV kubika Samkelisuye Khoza nginasimuva Shongwe eMbabane.
Mabhalanelo omkhulu etiko letekwatisa phesheya Dube uthi live solo liyachubeka nekwakha imitsetfo netinhlelo letibuke kukwelekwa nekuvikelwa kwemininingwane. Dube bekakhuluma ngesikhatsi yavakashelwe libandla lelibuketa indzaba tebuchwephesha lenhlangano yebunye bemave livekati le-Afrika i-African Union.
Ngeminyaka wa-2015 inhlangano yebunye bemave livekati le-Afrika i-African Union yakha luhlaka lwentfutfuko lekhonsako nelambandzakanya wonke Agenda 2063. Libandla lelibukete buchwephesha kule nhlangano i-African Union Development Agency noma ke Outer NEPAD ngemsombuluko livakashele etiko letekwatisa ngaphansi kwehlelo lelibuke kumbandzakanya sive nekukweleka imininingwane kusasebentwa lona luhlaka lwe-Agenda 2063. Mabhalanelo omkhulu kuleli tiko phesheya Dube uthi live lisahamba kahle tindzabeni temitsetfo lebuketa indzaba temininingwane.
Ne-National Development Plan yethu isho kona ukuthi nasakha imithetho asakhe imithetho le-evidence based lokho ukuthi sathi lokho ukuthi sakha ini sakhela bobani kunale evidence singamani sakhe nje umthetho ngoba phela for the sake of kwakha umthetho but akube ngumthetho leswati sesiwakhela etukwane so kumcoka kakhulu kufika kwalaba bekunene bafika kahle ke at the time nathi cishe sesikwendile lokunene lemithetho now say in place imithetho lama cyber bills aphasa eminyakeni lophelile na ukhumbula kahle na usasuka umnyaka kongibanje sibuka indlela ukuthi si-implementa njani.
Lohola lelibandla Dr. Gideon Nimako uthi labakutfolile ukuthi sive lesinyenti kulamava lelivekati side kahle lwati ngaloluhlaka.
One of the things that is coming out clearly from the evaluation of our first decade from 2013 up to date is that Agenda 2063 is not well known when you compare it with the SDGs. It's not well known, which means that we need to do more in terms of engaging the ordinary citizenry as to the awareness and communication, as to the continental program, regional programs, and national programs.
Happy that to have a team such as yours who have come to the country to somehow help us develop the necessary tools of analysis so that at the end of the day we're able to connect government to the citizens.
Lilibandla kubheke ukuthi libambe umhlangano netinhlangothi letitsindzekako tindzabeni tekukweleka nekugcinwa kwemininingwane lapha eveni. Etindzabeni te-Eswatini TV kubika Samkelisuye Khoza nginasimuva Shongwe eSulwini.
Sikhombisa labe bakatse banconyelwe kuba tindvuna tetinkhundla kanye nekuba malunga eParliamente lasebakhishiwe elihlelweni ke kulandzela kuhlola lekube kusolo kuchubeka i-vetting exercise lapho bekubukwa ukuthi labo labangenele likhetfo bamenjani kutemthelo engqondweni nemitsetfo yelive kanye nelukhetfo. Ngekusho kwalo khulumela libandla lelikhetfo kanye nemincele yetinkhundla mbonisa ibhembe labanyenti balaba ngilabo labatfolakele ukuthi abakemi kahle etindzabeni temithelo.
Lokhulumela libandla lelikhetfo kanye nemincele yetinkhundla mbonisa ibhembe uchaza kabanti ngalokuhlola kwalabo labafuna kuba tindvuna tetinkhundla kanye nemalunga eParliamente losokufika emaphethelweni.
Sesinawo mabito ebantfu labatawungenela lukhetfo lwekucala primary election esigabeni sendvuna yenkundla nesigaba selilunga leParliamente. Nangabe kukhona labawile bambalwa kakhulu libandla liyajabula lokuthi kuthi wena sekuyohlolwa kutfolakale ukuthi nesive besivele siphakamise emabito ebantfu labathembekile embangweni babe mbalwa kakhulu. Uma ngabe bandlula kulabasihlanu laba withdrawile banengi kakhulu babe mbalwa kakhulu labanengi kulaba lesithi bawile bawise tizathu nje letitsite letfaka ikhatsi tona tindzaba ukuthi umthelo abakalungisi kahle.
Bhembe uchazile ukuthi kuhlolwa kwalabo labafuna ukuba ubuchopho kusachubeka njengalokhu nathi nge-26 kule nyanga lesetulu angeke bona bangenelwe likhetho lelincane ema-primary elections njengaloku umthetho welikhetho ukubeka ngesombala ukuthi ukhetho labo kuyawuba ngilelo elikhulu ema-secondary elections. Tindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla mina Smova Shonge Senganini.
Live lisalisebenzisa kahle lisito letimali lolichamuka ka-Global Fund lolibuke kulwa nesifo samalale-veva kanye-ke nesifuba sengati kanye neligciwane i-HIV nesifo se-AIDS. Lokhu kuvetwe ngumphathi welihhovisi lelibuke umsebenzi welusito lwetimali lolichamuka esikhwameni saka-Global Fund i-Country Coordinating Mechanism Dr. Advocate Dlamini ngesikhathi lelihhovisi lihlangene netinhlangothi letahlukene kuhlanganisa-ke sicelo selive lesiya khona ka-Global Fund.
Sikhwama semhlaba iGlobal Fund sisekela live laseSwatini ngetimali tokulwa netifo letintsatfu lokusifo samalale-veva, isifo sesifuba sengati kanye neligciwane i-HIV nesifo i-AIDS lesekongeteke nemkhuhlane i-COVID-19. Ngemsombuluko lihhovisi lelibuke lusito lwetimali letichamuka khona ka-Global Fund, i-Country Coordinating Mechanism CCM lihlangene netinhlangothi tahulumende netinhlangano letitimele letibuke letifo kulungisa sicelo selive sekesekelwa ngetimali kulwa naletifo lesiya khona ka-Global Fund. Ticelo tiyaye tifakwe njalo emva kweminyaka lemithatfu. Umphathi walelihhovisi Dr. Advocate Dlamini uthi live lisayiphethe kahle imali yaka-Global Fund nekuthi yena Global Fund uyaye abukene nakaniketa lolusito lwetimali.
Ema-funds noma lusito lesithola ka-Global Fund live belisayisebenzisa kahle imali phela. Phindza abuke inhlangothi tekuvikela prevention ukuthi labo labasengaguliswa i-TB singabavikela njani. Nakona lokuvikela siyakwehlukanisa. Ukhona naba ngoba kuyatiwa i-TB isikhathi lesinyenti kulamalanga iba nawo umthelela wosibangwa nge-HIV. So ukhanze ukuthi labo laba ne-HIV kufuna bafakwe kuletinye emaphilisi tatasi kuvikela ukuthi bangabi ne-TB. So khona la kulo prevention so indlela ekuvikela nale khona la kulo prevention siyamehlukanisa. Ikhona inhlangothi etefundisa nge-TB ukuthi ivikelwa njani. Bese kuba khona inhlangothi ukuthi ngoba sone-HIV wena masuba semathubeni lasetulu kusube ne-TB asikuvikelekani. So uyatibuka le nhlangothi tonke le prevention ukuthi time ngemkhakha wakhona so that ungenochubeka lo mthwalo abantu abaguliswa i-TB ube setulu. So sivala tonke leti nhlangothi sivala tonke leti nhlangothi ufaka ekhasi nekwakuthi ke nasengisinza naba lababuya kwanze kusiba ba-78 mine banale nhlobo le-TB nakhona lapho uthi Global Fund abahlangabeteke phela nabo belapheke ngendlela. Kokuqala nje bantu ama-health care workers bafundzele ukuthi i-TB nayo lebangwa u-78 mine ibonakala njani. So kufuna ukuthi ube nema-training.
Lesicelo kubheke ukuthi sibe sesithunyelwa ka-Global Fund mhla tinge-21 kule nyanga lesetulu. Etindzabeni te-Eswatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza kunaSmuva Shongwe eZulwini.
Akukayihambeli kahle inhlambi yakuleli Haley Hoye langeni lekucala lemidlalo yema-Commonwealth Youth Eveni lase-Trinidad and Tobago. Hoye akakhoni ichubekela embili esigabeni se-100 meters butterfly.
Ivulwa ngalokusemthethweni imidlalo yema-Commonwealth Youth Games Event lase-Trinidad and Tobago ngelisonto ebusuku lapho khona live leSwatini limelele utingijimi letine lokungu-Haley Hoye, Demento Souza emidlalo yokubhukusha, Sibusisiwe Mabuza Mayibongwe Vilakati emidlalo wematubane. Kanzi lobe wekucala kumelela live kule midlalo kube ngu-Haley Hoye esigabeni se-50 meter butterfly. Hoye ungene ku-hit yesibili kodwa-ke tinto atikahambi kahle njengoba uphume wabasenzaweni yekugcina kulabo labasiphohlongo. Hoye ushaya isikhathi lesingu-31.32 seconds. Kanzi kumancamu lagcina athola imendlela yeligolide kube ngu-Emma McCone waseveni lase-Australia loshaya isikhathi lesingu-25.90 seconds. Kanzi Sibusisiwe Mabuza yena wemidlalo matubane labeka ngenela 100 meters wendlulile esigabeni sama-semifinals ngemuva wokucetha senzaweni yesithathu kuma-hits. Mabuza utawugijima isigaba se-semifinals nakubumbana insimbi ye-10 ebusuku. Lobikela umsakati Eswatini TV kutemidlalo ngilinda Dlamini kanzi tithombe tichamuka kulo licembu lakuleli leliseTrinidad and Tobago.
Betingawo-ke lesikuphathele tona talapha ekhaya lomhla ekuseni sibahlola imakethe sibuya sikhulumisana nebaka Home Affairs.
Umsakato wetithombe iEswatini TV utibophelele kuhlonipha nekulandzela umgomo wetekusakata loweluswe libandla letekuchumana eveni.
Ngephansi kwalomgomo sitimisele kusakata tindzaba letenteka ngaleso sikhatsi tindzaba letite emagama lacosheme letitsembekile letitsintsa tonke tinhlangothi naletisebaleni
kusukela kutepolitiki, tetemphilo, tekulima, tetinkantolo netemhlaba wonke jikelele siniletsela tindzaba njengoba tinjalo ngaleso sikhatsi letenteka ngaso.
Kanzi kulomsakato siphindze sikulethele lonke luhlobo lwetemidlalo kusuka emidlalweni welibhola letinyawo kuya emidlalweni ledlalelwa ematafuleni kanye naleto letiqhamuka ngaphandle kwakuleli.
Leti tindzaba lotiletselwa ngumsakato wetithombe iEswatini TV.
Tinso tethu tivikelwa ngekuthi kwekuqala kumcuka ukuthi sitipopole sivakashele emtholampilo siyithanze emtholampilo upopola nje uye ungaguli ungumuntu uyohlola ukuthi ingabe umtimba wakho usasebenta kahle yini lokungenani kabili ngeminyaka utipopola kuphindze futhi ushukumise umtimba nako kumcoka siphindze futhi sibuke tifo lesitibalile. Once watfolakala ukuthi sonato letifo leti bo HIV, bo hypertension, bo shukela, diabetes mellitus, nako lokho waba nako vakashela emtholampilo landzelela kubodokotela ukuthi bathi telaphe kanjani kutawusita ukuthi ugcine uvikele kutholakala ukuthi tinso takho setilimele nempilo ke kutiphatha nje nako kumcoka ngoba ukhanza ukuthi bantfu bayathanza ukuthi bese batifaka etitsakamiveni ekusebenziseni titsakamiva lokufaka ekhatsi tshwala namagwayi tonke tinhlobo tetitsakamiva so kumcuka ukuthi ungumuntu utipopole emtholampilo kuvikela tinso takho.
Asiphinze sinemukele sikuvusela nawo losanza kusivulela besivetele ukuthi isitabe sikhulumisana namlambo Dlamini who's the communications officer etiko letasekhaya tabe sikhuluma naye ngekubhaliswa kwetitifiketi leti automated lokuvelile nje indzaba ukuthi litiko selikhokhe isinqumo sokuthi selitawuvala masinyane kwendela sive titifiketi leti automated mangabe solo kunaleso certificate lesitsala sengeke usakhona kusenda lesisha kamelula le process nje seyitawucalelisa phansi ka lapho utawucala khona phansi ubhalisele certificate kungaba certificate sekutalwa noma ke certificate sekuthathana sesivele sinaye lapha umlangene tosichazela kabanti ngaloko ikhona ke nemitamo litiko leliyendako kuzama nje ukusonzeta lusitwe isiveni kubekisa nje ngehlelo lelichubekako etinkundleni i-mopping up exercise ngoba sikuvusele sibangikhona ukuthi ube nathi lomhla ehlelweni. I think nje vele mhlambe kumele ukuthi sicale ngayo lendzaba lena yekubhaliswa kwecertificate ma birth certificates death ne marriage certificate indzaba lenkulu nje ukuthi vele kungathi inkosi sendawuvala vele lokuthi bamvusala bawendela ama automated ngoba kathi nacala solonethi bamvu abete batoshintsha certificate tabo letindzala bende letintsha ngaba vele mhlambe kuva nje ukuthi inkosi litiko lifike njani lesinqumo lesi.
Ngibonge kakhulu Thombeni ngivusele nakuye umlaleli ekhaya ngingefiki lapho Thombeni ngicela ukucala nje nganayi level litiko lisetikwayo ngelesine mhla tilishumi kuyona inyanga lesetulu 10 August litiko litabe libungata noma licommemorate i-Africa Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Day. Litiko ke litabe lilaphayana emananga emphakathini wasemalibeni lapho khona litabe libhalisa tona letifiketi liguqula letifiketi lenda lokuningi cishe lokwenteka ehofisini lona ke embungato utabe ubungatwa under item lethi the potential to increase coverage, improve quality and timeliness of data through digitization of civil registration systems. Lokusho ukuthi litiko liti committee noma neAfrica yonkana iti committee ekutheni kube nelishintsho lishintsho litawu modernizer le system yekubhalisa certificate konke kubuye ku digitize. Thina ke silitiko Thombeni bevele sesihambele phambili iAfrica sesiqalile loku digitizer le certificate lokhu digitizer ke ngilokhu isusa la kulele manual leti letite nemaphini tibe ngileti letinephini nase ke iAfrica seyifike la kulesikhathi seyibona ukuthi vele le certificate tonke saletishintsho sekwenda ke litiko lifike la li decide khona ukuthi awu ngathi lokushintsha kwecertificate sekunesikhathi lesidze esikwenda njengaloku litiko licale kukumemetela ngeminyaka wa 2003 so yabala ke kusuka 2003 solo sishintsha le certificate letinzala kuba ngileto letinsha lese digital. Nasi uqala ke lo msebenzi silitiko nathi bese ngasibeka isikhathi ukuthi kuyawuba isikhathi lesinganani kepha lamhla sekufike kwa lapho selithi khona litiko cha sesitawubeka isikhathi i-deadline ngokuthi ngalelilanga leli kufuna kube wonke lokhona even lona leso certificate lesidzala abe asasishintshile kungaba certificate sekutalwa kungaba certificate sekuthathana kungaba certificate sekushona sekuyawudingeka ukuthi wonke umuntu abe asatshintshile le certificate Thombeni.
Okay. Inkosi inini le deadline nekuthi ngabe mhlambe vele nasengindlulile le deadline sengidawenda njani mina lengisola ngakashintsha certificate sami lesinzala kuleso lesensha.
I-deadline litiko lisengayibeke kepha itawuphakama masinyane ngoba vele le decision seyiphumile ukuthi le certificate saletishintsho lo kushintshwa ke le certificate ke Thombeni uma ngabe wena kufika lesikhathi lapho litiko selibonile ukuthi salesigcina la ungashinji sekuyawufana nekuthi ude certificate ngoba vele namanje ude ngoba nasingalahleka nje lesimanuali utasithola kuphi njengaloku labaningi bayefika ehhovisi athola ukuthi umuntu ufuna leso certificate lesalahleka simnikete amabhuku lamanye lamabhuku ahambe ngoba lendlela lothola ukuthi lesinye isikhathi abekeke ngayo ayisiyele endlela lamanye uthola ukuthi sekalimlimala kepha nje umuntu uyakhona ukuthi angene aseshe asithi nase kutholakele ukuthi nembala sabhaliswa bese soyendelwa kepha ke uma sesiwelele ngale singabe ngeke sabuyela kule system lebesiyenda solo sifunelana lapha nalapha sekuyawuba ukuthi uma ngabe le certificate sakho singasatholakala vele soyawuqala phasi ubhalise
ngicela phasi vele ngazothi vele anginaso nje certificate
sekuyawufana nekuthi awunaso certificate dibuteke ukuthi nangabe bekulukhunyana manje le certificate sinyamalele sikhona ebhukwini kepha ungenaso le copy yaso bekulukhuni kanganani nase songasakhoni ke kuyale ebhukwini sekutawufuna ukuthi manje mhlawumbe ubuyele emphakathini bayokubhalela kube ugibelisa abagijimi lokwana lokuze uyofika la ubhaliseka khona certificate. So silitiko siyakhuthaza ukuthi sive asukume sishintshe le certificate kungaze kufike nalanga nali lapho khona litiko litase liyemisa khona.
Ngifuna vele sikhuluma kakhulu ngaleyo ndzaba Nkhosile ukuthi ngabe vele mhlambe kusuke sekubambeni lapha ezweni because ngakhumbula nje I think ngomnyaka wa 2021 liphina ndvuna nkhulu belisukumisa i-Children's Month yavetela ukuthi vele lokubhaliswa kwalama birth certificates nakhona solo batali abafuni kukwenda yabekisa nje yavete ukuthi 53.5% abantwana labangephansi kwa 5 years old babhalisiwe but laba ngu 46.5% solo bete ama birth certificate. Ingabe ibese sayibamba phi lapha kulabadala ingabe kusukela kulo 2021 ingabe sewukhona nemehlukeleni ubonako ekubhalisweni kwama birth certificate?
Akusafani Thombeni. I think lokukhulu lokusitila silitiko kutheni bantu bagcine bedile kutobhalisa kuthi le certificate sesiyafuneka nasesikolweni. Umntwana akasangeni esikolweni certificate. Kungako thine nje etiko sikhasile siningi sesiye sithole abantu bathi ngijake certificate lana umntwana sekufuna esikolweni akakhoni ke esikolweni kanti phela umntwana awumakheli certificate ngoba sajake sekujake ke esikolo. Umntwana wakhelwa certificate angahlanganisa amalanga la ngemashumi lasithupha 60 days. Kulilungelo leqala umdali lanika lona umntwana.
Sebayakhona inibona abadala ukuthi vele umfana ambhalise nje nakasanza kubeleka kukhona le etibhedlela ngabe kukhona into lokubambisana emkhathini kwenu as Minister of Home Affairs kanye netiko letempilo?
Sikhona Thombeni kune project lekuthiwa yi closing of the tap. Le closing of the tap njengaloku simo phale ngaphandle emiphakathini uma utawukolopa uthole ukuthi awukayivali lempompi lamanti ayachubeka achitheke uyawudikhanza umopha ungacethi. Kungako ke Thombeni le closing of the tap yona seyizama ukuthi lolibhaliso lendeke lesibhedlela lokhu ngikhuluma nje la imbabane government hospital umtali sophuma aphethe certificate semntwana. Uthabeleka nje nakaphethe lawo maphepha akhe lafanele uphuma aphethe certificate semntwana. Lokusho ukuthi asekho sidingo sekuthi nakaphuma la sibhedlela abe ayehovisi ayowakha certificate so phuma naso nakhona RFM kunjalo. Siyachubeka ke silitiko lokuthi siwavule lama service centers la etibhedlela kungasimadudane nje ngidawube ngikhona Thombeni ngemvumo yakho ukuthi ngibuye ngidawusho ukuthi sesivule indzawo letingaka. Ngiyathemba nje ukuthi start sicedza nangu September tindzawo lesitabe sitivulile tawube tingetulu kwaletihlanu.
Okay. No ngifuna singene Nkosi sikhumbude nje sive mhlambe nje ngemitamo la yenda kohulumende mhlambe nalo litiko letasekhaya kuza manje kusonzeta lona lisito esivena. I think sovetile nje one of ama efforts la wenda kohulumende lokubambisana kwenu kwelitiko letasekhaya ne Minister of Health lokuthi batali bakhona ukubhalisa abantu ababo nabaphuma nje etibhedlela. Ikhona leminye imitamo nje uhulumende la yenda ko le decentralization kusonzeta lisito nale mopping up exercise lokukhulume ngayo. I think kusichazela nje kabandi Nkosi ukuthi vele le mitamo la yenda kohulumende senambe kangana nje ke?
Silitiko letasekhaya asikahlali phasi ngekubambisana naletinye tinhlangothi tahulumende lamanye matiko lekufaka ekhathi litiko lasetingundleni. Solo siyachubeka ngekuthi kuvulwe ama service centers live lonke la etingundleni. Sengideke kaningi ukuthi kalobamba sinayo i-service center kude longakwenti bantu bakalobamba nje labanye sebesuka lambabane uthole ukuthi bayakalobamba bayositakala khona labanye basuke kubomalkensi batositakala kalobamba kude lo sekungendeki kalobamba. emhlambanyathi lensha nje lesithanza kuyivula nayo kukugege solo litiko lizama ukuthi lilethe lawo ma services kubantu nalapho litiko likhuthatha nato le certificate lesikhuluma ngato leti manual siyatishintsha kungako siyakhuthata sive ukuthi asite sishintshe le certificate kwendlulela lapho i-mopping exercise ngiyajabula nje kubika Thombeni ukuthi i-mopping exercise esigodini saselibonjeni sesicedzile nakukhona lo sele siyakhuthata nakhona akangahlali akete ehovisini atawuthola lisito nakukhona inkinga lanayo akasishayele nathi etikweni kule nombolo 76063938 sitobona ukuthi sibasita njani kulena mopping exercise noma sesengcile khona ngiyathemba nje indvuna yelitiko umntana enkosi Lindiwe utawusiniketa kusi kuhambe kanjani asinikete wonke nemafigures akhona ukuthi kusebente kanjani elibonjeni ishiselo lekungiyona solo silwa nayo kulamalanga nayo seyibukeka seyiphela kuleli viki nje sisesandleni nasisuka esandleni sesiyenkhundleni yekugcina ihosiya lokusho ukuthi neshiselo siyayicetha sibheke kuthi evikini lelitako sibe sicala sifunza sakamanzini sitabe sikala mgabi nje ngelesibili ngemsombuluko noma lesibili kepha ngisatawa uthathisa nami kulabadzala solo sizama kona ukuthi silethe lolusito labantu ila siveni sisonzete lelisito siveni kuze kuthi kungabi khona nasicedza lomkhankaso we-mopping exercise kungabi khona namunye lotawusala athi mine ngide certificate sekutalwa lokho kwasijabulisa kakhulu silitiko ukuthi nasihamba elibonjeni sibhalise gogo lobeka neminyaka leng117 nasibuka ke la ngaphandle gogo is the oldest living human being in the world through mopping exercise kungako sikhuthata sive ukuthi asibhalise akushintshwe le certificate letinzala kube ngileto letinsha kuze kuthi nalifika nalisuku nali lesiyilishoko ukuthi luyeda luthole ukuthi kude certificate lesingekho emshinini kude liswati lelingabhalisi nalabo ke lothola ukuthi Thombeni batelelwe lakhaya kepha bekuhamba nabo abangabaleke abasonzele ehovisi sitobona ukuthi basitakala kanjani ngoba khumbula phela ukuthi i-civil registration noma telibhaliso uthi lo mthetho sibhalisa thina i-event leyendeke lapha ekhaya nangabe udelelwe lakhaya noma nga usive ufanele ukuthi sikunikete leso certificate lesitawusho ukuthi udelwe lapha ekhaya kepha ke akusho ukuthi sidase sikunika buve lo mthetho nemithetho sekelo ubese soyasho ukuthi nase kuhamba isikhathi eside udase uyavela ebandleni lelibukete citizenship so ucela leyo citizenship ngoba nathi silitiko noma singungihulumende asikafisi kwakha ebantu laba stateless ngoba nasatelwe nje umntwana atelwe eMazambia lapha ekhaya akade waye eZambia likhaya latiko ngileli la Eswatini kude lelinye na mhlambe nababe so wajika wabuyela eZambia noma sebashona labatali bobabili usele yena lo mntwana loyo sosala stateless singihulumende asikafisi kwanzisa noma asanzisi abantu laba stateless neconstitution ikubeka ngalokusebala lokho kungako siyakhuthata abasonzele umuntu nasefike eminyakeni mhlambe lelishumi nesithupha naye sitase siyam advise ukuthi salo apply le citizenship ke wakithi utokhona ukuthi nawe ube nebuve elobufanele.
Okay, kombe kukubuyisela emuva kancane nje Nkosi lapha kule certificate leti lothi kodwa bese sekuyavalwa. Ngifuna ukuthi ucacise nje kunayo indzaba yekutekana ukuthi ingabe lawo ma couples lawo lasela ne certificate takatsente kutekana nabo nasekwengcele deadline. Kusho ukuthi kutaba abantu laba lekutawuvela emshinini ukuthi abakathathani.
Thombeni namanje emshinini kuvela ukuthi abakathathani. Lokusho ukuthi uhulumende akabade. Uma kuyafika le deadline bangatshintshi le certificate tabo tabangile ti automated sekuyawufuna vele babuyele ekhaya esibayeni bayawutekana uyayibona ke le process ikutsenganani bayawutekana kuze kuthi babuye batawubhalisa certificate ngoba batawuvela njengebantu labangazange sebathathana kufana nalo naye lo ne certificate sekutalwa naye uma ngabe kuyawufika lelanga le deadline angashintshe le certificate uyawufana nemuntu longazange sekabe ne certificate sekufuna ke alandzele yonke imigomo leyo bibekiwe leso sikhathi ukuthi kuze ubhalise certificate sekutalwa kufuna uhambe nayo imigomo nayo.
Yeah, no ngiyavakala Nkosi kokugcina nje Dlamini kusikhumbuta nje tindzawo lapho nikhona khona kule nyanga noma kuleli viki kulomsebenzi we-mopping exercise.
Awu.
Ndaba niseshiselweni this week.
Siseshiselweni sicedzisa inkundla yasesandleni.
Okay.
Lesithemba ukuthi kutathi nakuphela leliviki leli sitabe sicedzile bese kuthi evikini lelitako sesiqala inkundla yasehosiya kulenye ngoba lama mobile trucks ethu mabili lelenye i-mobile truck isesigwe besifanele ke sigwe kube besitawucedza kusasa ngelesithathu ngetingcinamba letikhona telitiko njengaloku nanangumsebenzi we civil registration day le khona le mananga sekuyafuna ukuthi ngelesithathu kusasa simise ngoba kulanga leqhina kule truck esibili esigwe simise fane ukuthi lelanga lesithathu silendlulisele kulesihlanu lapho sitabe siyacedza ke inkundla yasesigwe ngilena truck ke yesibili lele ngithi itase ke yona seyahamba yakamanzini enkundleni yakalamgabi lapho itawufike iqale kumopha khona sesicala isigodi sakamanzini kepha ke umntana Nkosi lindiwe lokungena longamelele litiko utawusukumisa ngalokusemthethweni lo yomsebenzi khona emphakathini evusweni kepha ke langa usengalibeki wehlanga.
Sibonga kakhulu Nkosi imbukelisa utivele ukuthi mangabe solo ungakashintshi certificate sakho kuleso lesitsala usiyese kuleso lesisha lesi automated udaba sengingene mangabe litiko selimemetele i-deadline ngoba kutawukuphocelela ukuthi ucalele phansi kabusha ubhaliselele so certificate. Asibakhulete mangethena sibuya sithatha i-traffic update.
Nene bekunene kusetandleni tesive ukuthi imimango ingagcini kukampunzi edla emini sive sakangwane nebantu labakhethe kuhlala Eswatini abaphile ngekukhululeka nekuthi kubethe lonyathelo lilungelo lalabanye egameni lekufuna lilungelo lakhe sive asikhumbule ukuthi emaphoyisa bomake nabobabe labatinikele kwenta siqiniseko ukuthi wonke umuntu lonempahla yakhe ingacekelwa phansi ngulomunye wonke umuntu akahlale ngekuthula nangaphandle kokwesaba tindwe letingatiwa emaphoyisa ngekulandzela nekushiqilela umthetho athi into yemuntu ayibe ngeyakhe umuntu sive asijinge siwabambise siphinde siwasekele emaphoyisa emsebentini wawo kude emalungelo aso sive osomabhizinisi kanye nebantu labasebentako anganyatheleki. Khona-ke imimango itawukwakha nemakhaya akhulise bantwana ngaso sandla lesiya emlonyeni. Emaphoyisa naso sive abasebente ngebudlelwane nangekubambisana kulwa nebucala netingoti temgwaco.
Asiphindze sinimukele kulesikhathi isitawubuka simo semgwaco na Constable Ntombendla sekuvusele intolo ngabe kuhambeka kanjani emgwacweni live lomuhla.
Ngikuvusele Magagula, ngivusele naye umbukeli wekusile breakfast show. Imigwaco elivela kaNgwane singumbutho wembube nesive sesihlolile. Imigwaco leminengi iyahambeka eveni la kaNgwane kepha ke tikhona tikhinyabeto letikhona lokufaka ekhasi inkomo emigwacweni noma ke imfuyo lejangazako nato tigoti letikhona emigwacweni. Sithinje bashayeli abende isiqiniseko kwekuthi bahlala bacaphele ngaso sonke isikhathi basasebenzisa yona imigwaco kuze kuthi baphephe. Singakuthanda nje ukukhuthatha kubo bashayeli kulolu suku lanamuhla kungaba ngiko nje kwekuthi esikhatsini lesinengi imigwaco lemikhulu le ikakhulukazi umgwaco losuka khona ehekeni laseNgwenya ubheke khona embadlana noma ke lo wenza kamanzini uyafika khona embadlana. Lemigwaco leyo ukhanza kwekuthi esikhatsini lesinengi imotolo leti usebenzisako ihamba ngelitubane leliphakaphakeme kanti ke kulesinye isikhathi ukhanza kwekuthi nabo laba labahamba ngetinyawo ukhanza sebawela lapho kungafanele khona. Siyakhuthatha nje ngobashayeli kwekuthi noma ngabe lelo tubane kufanele kwekuthi libe ngileliphakeme kepha abahlale bacaphele lababona abantu labaseceleni kwemgwaco ngoba ukhanza kwekuthi sebayawela lapho ukhanze sekwenteka ingoti ngaleyo ndlela. Nekukhuthatha ke bona labahamba ngetinyawo kwekuthi abende siqiniseko kwekuthi bayasebenzisa tindzawo letiphephile tekuwela leyo migwaco lokuthi kanqo letihamba ngetulu kwayo leyo migwaco. Khona lapho ke kungaba nje kukhuthatha nabo la emigwacweni ke leminye lengasiyo yona i-freeway kwekuthi siyanaka abantu labanengi ekseni ukhanza kwekuthi bayashukumisa umtimba khona eceleni kwemgwaco. Sithi nje abagcoke dona impahla letibonakalako kuze kuthi nabo labahamba ngetimotolo batawusheshe bababone noma ke sebatelula khona emigwacweni abende siqiniseko kwekuthi bayakhwesha lapha eceleni kwemgwaco kwatise phela kwekuthi nangabe sowunake lokunye ungete wayibona nemotolo seyiphambalata seyingaze ikushayise. Madolobha elivela kaNgwane siwahlolile omane siba netemgwaco tasebenta tonke ngalokufanele kanti nemigwaco lengenela kuwo la madolobha iyahambeka kude sikhinyabeto lesingakanani ngaphandle nje kwelidolobha la kumathapha lesinakako ikakhulukazi ngetithuba tasekuseni bantu labanengi bahamba ngetinyawo kulelo dolobha ikakhulukazi kuwo umgwaco losuka khona kaNdlunganye uyofika khona ePrison. Sithi nje bashayeli abatawusila basebenzisa yona imigwaco yakumathapha akanakisise kwatise phela ukuthi le ndlela lebaba baningi ngayo labantu ukhanza sebangena ekhathi emgwacweni sebasuka nakhona ngekugcwala kwayo i-pavement khona lapho. Sithi nje bashayeli abalihlise litubane kwatise phela kwekuthi litubane lelivumelekile khona lapho litubane lelungafanele kwekuthi uhambe ngetulu kwa-60 kilometers ngeli-hour. Letinye sifunza sitihlolile nato lokufaka ekhathi sifunza saselibonjeni siyanaka kwekuthi leso sifunza leso emigwacweni yakhona kunemfuyo lenengi ikakhulukazi inkomo ikakhulukazi nje umgwaco losuka khona kuLukhula ubheke khona eBig Bend nyalo ekuseni khona lapho dinengi kakhulu inkomo. Sithi nje bashayeli abaqaphelisise basawusebenzisa lowo mgwaco kuze ukuthi baphephe. Ngale kwaloko Thombeni naye umbukeli imigwaqo elivela kaNgwane iyahambeka ngaphandle nje kwalesi lesengishito tisikabedo kungaba kuthisela yena umbukeli usuku loluhle naloluphephile basetawusebenzisa yona imigwaqo elivela kaNgwane.
Sibonga Ndolo kusinetalo yombikelo mhla ekseni imbukeli esibahlo emakethe nasibuye sithatha sidinzaba lesengisi.
We at Eswatini Television Authority are committed to observing the Eswatini Communication Commission's Broadcasting Code of Conduct.
Under the code, we are committed to broadcast news that is current, free from hate speech, accurate, balanced, and fair.
From politics to business, health, agriculture, courts, and global news, we bring you the latest updates as they happen, when they happen.
We cover all the sporting codes from the football pitch to the chessboards.
This is Eswatini TV News.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Let's take a look at the English news. Her Majesty the Indlovukazi has arrived in the state of Qatar. Her Majesty arrived through Doha International Airport in Doha City.
Her Majesty the Indlovukazi was accorded a warm reception in Doha, state of Qatar. Her Majesty was received by the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Eswatini to the state of Qatar, His Excellency Socha Dlamini. The Indlovukazi's visit to Qatar shines a spotlight on strides that have been made to upscale bilateral cooperation between the Kingdom of Eswatini and the state of Qatar. While the two nations enjoy relations that have culminated in the signing of various agreements in sectors that are considered key drivers of the economy, Their Majesties have been calling for broader cooperation between the two countries. In 2022, the two nations signed an air services agreement. Recently, on the sidelines of the 5th United Nations Conference on the Least Developed Countries in Doha, His Majesty King Mswati III urged the Qatar Science and Technology Park to consider collaborating with the Royal Science and Technology Park in the Kingdom of Eswatini. Her Majesty the Indlovukazi is accompanied by a delegation that comprises His Royal Highness Prince Gcina, Her Royal Highness Princess Qethuka, Chief Gija, the Minister of Public Works and Transport, Chief Ndlaluhlaza Ndwandwe, and the National Secretary, Nhlanhla Dlamini. On the news, I am Sandile Makanya in Doha, State of Qatar.
The Deputy Prime Minister, Themba Masuka, has given a stern warning to proscribed organizations and any institutions against using children in marches of any kind. The Deputy Prime Minister was reacting to an incident which happened last week where a child was part of a march organized by one of these organizations.
Let no one destroy the future of our children. And we want to emphasize that, and we appeal to everyone to not destroy the future of our children. The country's constitution of 2005 and the Children's Protection and Welfare Act of 2012 obligates parents and duty bearers, such as schools, religious groups, and community leaders, to ensure that children are protected from any practice which may affect their growth and development. The Children's Protection and Welfare Act of 2012 stipulates clearly that parents have a responsibility to protect the child from violence, from abuse, exploitation, exposure to physical and moral hazards. We didn't see this over the weekend or whenever this march was undertaken. The Office of the Deputy Prime Minister is doing all necessary investigations and consultations to ensure that law takes its course on all perpetrators of such child abuse.
The government of the Kingdom of Eswatini has received recognition from the UN International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals for the excellent cooperation and the role played by the country in the apprehension of a fugitive that was involved in the Rwanda genocide in 1994, Fulgens Kayishema.
According to government spokesperson Alpheus Nxumalo, the International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals Office of the Prosecutor Fugitive Tracking Team was on Monday received at the Prime Minister's office, where they openly appreciated the Kingdom of Eswatini's role in the arrest of Fulgens Kayishema, who had been on the run for over 20 years and is charged with the brutal killing of more than 2,000 Rwandans. Kayishema once stayed in the Kingdom of Eswatini, where he came as a refugee. He was arrested in Pearl in the Republic of South Africa on 24 May 2023 following a joint operation by the IRMCT Office of the Prosecutor Fugitive Tracking Team and South African authorities. The Kingdom of Eswatini has been credited for creating a task force at the request of the IRMCT and working hand in hand with the IRCMT tracking team so to ensure the fugitives' arrest. During the meeting, IRMCT Deputy to the Prosecutor Kevin Hughes expressed the appreciation of the IRMCT, the UN Secretary Council, and the government of Rwanda for Eswatini's cooperation in this mission. He also pledged the IRMCT's willingness to support Eswatini in any way as their means of expressing gratitude to the country. In response, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Polile Shakantu, standing in for the Prime Minister, thanked the IRSCMT for the update and recognition. She said the Kingdom of Eswatini was happy that families of the victims of the 1994 Rwanda genocide had finally found closure and that the fugitive had been apprehended. She also requested for a training support on fugitive tracking from the IRCMU. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla Babane.
The World Bank has recommended that the country considers the ownership of state-owned enterprises, strengthen legal framework on these enterprises, and ensure greater transparency of information to enhance accountability and oversight in the sector. This is contained in 2023 Economic Updates report, which has been launched at the Hilton Garden Inn in Babane.
The persistent low growth of the country's economy and unprofitable state-owned enterprises are part of the reasons the World Bank has worked with the Ministry of Finance to find a significant reform to help the country achieve socio-economic aspirations through state-owned enterprises.
One of the key findings of the report is that both the Kingdom and the SACO countries are trapped in a low-growth path. So it's a very important, observation, and we hope that the report argues actually that the SOE reform, the state-owned enterprise reform, can be a key element to boost economic growth for the Kingdom.
The Minister of Finance, Neil Rickenberg, says the country currently started a process to strengthen the legal framework for Category A state-owned enterprises.
And even though we need to do reforms, I don't want that to sound like our SOEs are necessarily all in trouble. That's not the case. We have, I'll maybe even refer to one or two SOEs that are really, really performing very, very well. And I'll try and refrain from referring to any that are under the Ministry of Finance. So I'll use EEC as an example. EEC, when trouble hit with COVID, EEC was in profit-making territory. EEC was getting double-digit increases on the cost of electricity coming to EEC. EEC managed to cushion that increase and managed to pass virtually for 2 years during the peak, during the height of our pain as an economy, managed to cushion the increase in electricity tariffs through to the end consumer.
The World Bank has also recommended that Eswatini should address macro-fiscal pressures, unlock private sector investment, and enhance service delivery for inclusive growth. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Cindy Swazwane, and Skumbuzo Dlamini Mbabane.
The Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Moses Vilagati, says to date, eMaswati have planted 6 million trees under the 10 million tree planting campaign. The minister has applauded eMaswati for participating in this national project.
To mitigate the impacts of climate change, the Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs launched a 10 million tree planting campaign in 2020, themed Plant a Tree and Save the Environment. The ministry launched another project this year in commemoration of the International Day of Forest, the 1.2 million tree planting project. The Minister of Tourism, Moses Vilagati, has commended efforts by eMaswati to plant trees.
It's exciting to report that to date, we have planted close to 6 million trees, but we're still not that excited because we'd have loved to reach 10 million. On the other one of 1.2 million trees planted within a day, we were able to plant 920,020 trees, which is 77% achievement. We take this opportunity to thank various stakeholders, communities and individuals, schools, municipalities, churches, as well as health facilities that came on board.
The minister also says the country is set to build an eco-city in Bageni. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Sam Katsiwe with Simuva Shongwe, Babane.
The Principal Secretary at the Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology, Pesha Dube, says the Kingdom of Eswatini prioritizes data protection issues. The PS has been speaking during a courtesy visit from the African Union Development Agency on Monday.
In 2015, the African Union member states adopted Agenda 2063, which is a strategic framework for inclusive growth and sustainable development for these countries. On Monday, the Minister of Information, Communications and Technology received a courtesy visit from the African Union Development Agency to have discussions on the data for citizen engagement for development projects. The PS and the Minister of ICT, Pesha Dube, says the Kingdom of Eswatini has data issues on the priority list.
Happy that to have a team such as yours who have come to the country to somehow help us develop the necessary tools of analysis, so that at the end of the day we're able to connect government to the citizens.
The delegation was headed by Dr. Gideon Nimako, who is the head of strategy and planning for Outer NEPAD.
One of the things that is coming out clearly from the evaluation of our first decade, from 2013 up to date, is that Agenda 2063 is not well known when you compare it with the SDGs. It's not well known, which means that we need to do more in terms of engaging the ordinary citizenry as to the awareness and communication, as to the continental program, regional programs, and national programs.
The delegation is to have a meeting with different stakeholders on data issues and Agenda 2063. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Sam Kalsuekoza with Zimuva Shongwe, Babane.
17 aspirant constituency council and members of parliament failed the vetting exercise. According to Elections and Boundaries Commission Communications Officer Mboni Sipembe, most of those aspirants that failed the vetting exercise because of tax clearance. Bembe says there were 3,489 constituency councils and members of parliament that were nominated to these positions, whereas after the vetting exercise, there are now 3,472 eligible to contest for these positions.
The Elections and Boundaries Commission Communications Officer Mbonis Bembe says the list of those eligible to be elected to the positions of constituency headmen and members of parliament during primary elections is available.
Sesinawo mabito ebantfu labatawungenela lukhetfo lwekucala primary election esigabeni sendvuna yenkundla nesigaba selilunga lephalamende. Nangabe kukhona labawile bambalwa kakhulu libandla liyajabula.
He proceeds to state that EPC is happy that few candidates failed the vetting exercise. He says this shows that Eswatini managed to nominate the rightful candidates. On the issue of those who withdrew from standing for the elections, he says EPC received about 5 cases. Bebe further mentions that all those who failed the vetting exercise have been informed about the developments. He also emphasizes that the vetting of chiefdom councillors Ucopo is still underway as they are not going to contest during the primary elections on August 26, 2023, but they will only contest during the secondary elections. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, Ulismova Shonge Nganini.
The Country Coordinating Mechanisms Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Advocate Dlamini, says the Kingdom of Eswatini's efforts to eliminate malaria, TB and HIV and AIDS are commendable. The CEO has been speaking during a Global Fund grant application meeting held with stakeholders.
Global Fund provides the Kingdom of Eswatini with financial assistance for TB, malaria and HIV and AIDS elimination programs. On Monday, the Eswatini's Country Coordinating Mechanism, which is a wing that coordinates the development of the national request for Global Fund funding, gathered with stakeholders to draft the grant Cycle 7 application. The CEO for the Eswatini's Country Coordinating Mechanism, Dr. Advocate Dlamini, unpacked the significance of the meeting.
Naturally, Global Fund every 3 years is a cycling. Global Fund, we need to make what we call a grant application. So it is that time of the year as a country that we're doing that, where we believe that after such a successful grant application, we shall get support from Global Fund. So this exercise entails gathering all specialists, all colleagues, all people in the Ministry of Health that are either program colleagues, managers, etc., that are involved in the 3 diseases, TB, HIV, and malaria plus COVID-19. But this time around, we're talking about TB, HIV.
The Kingdom of Eswatini is expected to have submitted the grant application by August 21st, 2023. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Sam Kalsuekoza with Zimuva Shongwe, Esulwini.
Zolinzi Masimelane, who stands accused of killing his girlfriend Sharon Neves, was Shiselweni National Emergency Responses Council on HIV and AIDS coordinator, claims that he tried to save his lover Neves from dying. Unfortunately, his attempts were rebuked by the deceased. The accused person said this during the continuation of his trial before High Court Judge Maxine Langwenya.
The accused person, Zoliban Simelan, is represented by his lawyer Mlinzi Mthethwa and the state-parated detective Nkosinathi Thusi, who took pictures at the crime scene. Mthethwa informed the court that he has been informed that on the day of the incident, Mthethwa and the deceased Sharon Neves were in a good talking terms. He said things turned nasty after Simelane failed to return on time from Masaisini. He told the court that in a telephonic interview, the deceased allegedly started to shout at him. The court heard that while the accused person and his friend Tulan Dlamini were having alcoholic beverages at His Majesty's Correctional Services in Hlangano, the deceased joined them. She was allegedly carrying a glass of wine and left her bottle in a motor vehicle. The court further heard that the deceased left around 8 p.m. while he joined her in their house around 11 p.m. It was the accused person's evidence that upon arrival, he allegedly found Neves drinking some wine and watching TV. He says at this moment, the deceased allegedly verbally and physically abused him. The accused person further alleged that after this, he lost his temper and ended up beating up the deceased. He says he mistakenly pushed Neves, and she fell on a coffee table with her head and also hit the floor. The accused person says out of fear, he went outside and smoked while trying to make a call to get assistance. However, when he returned, he allegedly found Neves lying at the passage. Crown witness Tusi says when the accused person was arrested, he had no bruises that show that he was involved in a fight. Tusi also wondered why the accused person did not reach out for medical help. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, with Nondoduzo Dube High Court.
The Book of Relevation seminar has been finally launched. The event was graced by the presence of His Royal Highness Prince Banzile and the University of Andrew prosecutor Dr. Ranko Stefanovic.
Today's seminar, which is conducted by Dr. Ranko from the USA, from the University of Andrew. He's basically going to tell us more what's happening on the Book of Revelations. Since the Book of Revelations is more about the coming of Christ, the Lord Jesus said He's coming, but He didn't tell us the day and the time, but there are signs that are following His coming. So Dr. Ranko is here to meet the pastors for the 3 days workshop from today until Wednesday to share the knowledge.
This winter season has recorded a high number of snake bites, which is unusual. The founder of the Eswatini Anti-Venom Foundation, Tia Lichka, has asked members of the public to be cautious of snakes, as snake bites are recorded on a daily basis. Sensitive viewers are advised that the following report contains visuals of snakes.
It is uncommon to receive a high number of snake bites during the winter season. According to the founder of the Eswatini Anti-Venom Foundation, Tia Lichka, about 30 snake bites were recorded this winter, which is quite alarming.
We've had close to 30 snake bites recorded during the winter months, which is probably 4 or 5 times more than what we usually do. So we need to please be careful. We need to remain vigilant, even though it is cooler outside and we do have cooler spells. There's a lot you can do to help yourself not getting bitten. Simple things like wear shoes when you're walking outside, use a foot so you can see where you're going. Make sure that your home isn't a hotel for rodents.
She urges people to wear long pants and shoes and use a torch when traveling at night.
All 4 regions are affected by the puffadder bite. There isn't one region that is more active than the other.
She says people must walk away whenever they come across a snake and avoid beating snakes because that is very dangerous. The number to call whenever they come across snakes is 7602-5088. For Eswatini TV News, I am Kiani Msibi with Smova Shongwe, some visuals sourced from the internet.
Two minutes after 7, let's take a look at our sports news. Mbabane Highlanders director Ali Khomongwe and Mbabane Swallows manager Sandile Zwane say taking part in different charity tournaments will give them better preparations ahead of the new season. The two club bosses mentioned this after both clubs won a piece of silverware over the past weekend.
Sports Roundup, we begin with Mbabane Highlanders director Ali Khomongwe and Mbabane Swallows general manager Sandile Zwane, who believe taking part of different charity tournaments will give them better preparations ahead of the new season.
Actually, I was very happy with that. It was a coincidence. It's like we tell each other that we must go to South Africa and compete with the big giants in South Africa, both of us, Mbabane Swallows and Mbabane Highlanders. So I was very happy to see them competing because actually those 2 teams, the 3 teams, Wanderers and Moneni, those are big teams.
Sesithiniwe ku-disappoint ama-supporters ethu sesithekele season le asisipreparation kahle sisaqala sitokhona ukuthi sikhona sibuya na something esingayiletha kuma-supporters uzathi khona kujabule nalokuthi iHighlander iwina nje nayo bengekho bengaphandle kwaleli kuphuma ngaphandle kwaleli yothola i-competition yopractice nalabanye abantu kukhona lokuningi lokutholako lokwenda kusinasubuya lakhaya khona kuba kubehlula lalabanye. So ngisho kona ukuthi lokho khombisa ukuthi iMbabane Highlanders neMbabane Swallows khona labakufisile this year kukwenda.
Highlanders lifted the Bible Society Cup this past weekend, while Swallows lifted the red card to GPV tournament in the Republic of South Africa. Moving on, the Commonwealth Youth Games were officially opened in Trinidad and Tobago on Sunday, with the Kingdom of Eswatini being represented by 4 athletes, being Sibusisiwe Mabuza and other from Swimming Association being Haley Ho and Damon Souza. who was the first to represent the country and didn't have a good performance, has achieving it last. The good news came from 100-meter sprinter Spusiso Mabuza, who proceeded to the semi-finals after finishing third. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports, I'm Linda Dlamini, Mbabane.
It's 24 minutes after 7. We've come to the end of our bulletin. Thank you for staying with us. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly.
Are you ready to own your future? Boto University Eswatini campus is proud to announce a golden opportunity for aspiring students.
I am more convinced that this is the best university on the face of the planet.
Boto University Eswatini is fully registered and accredited by Eswatini Higher Education Council and has opened doors to offer enrollment for government-sponsored students. At Boto University, we believe in empowering minds, nurturing talents, and shaping the architects of a future prosperous Eswatini.
We produce quality graduates who propagate the growth and development of our region.
With our world-class faculty and cutting-edge resources with international partnership and student exchange program, you'll receive an education that goes beyond textbooks. Boto University offers a 4-year bachelor's degree in business, accounting, computing, mobile computing and network security and computer forensics, as well as health information management.
Boto University.
Vibrance, innovation,
impact.
We at Eswatini Television Authority are committed to observing the Eswatini Communication Commission's Broadcasting Code of Conduct.
Under the code, we are committed to broadcast news that is current, free from hate speech, accurate, balanced, and fair.
From politics to business, health, agriculture, courts, and global news, we bring you the latest updates as they happen, when they happen.
We cover all the sporting codes from the football pitch to the chessboards.
This is Eswatini TV News.
Ngo-28 minutes after 7 sanembuyela futhi ehlelweni Kusile breakfast yosekuvusela nalo sandzako sivulela njengoba kumele ukuthi lukhetfo lolonyaka solo liyachubeka kumsebenzi lona lesolo ucuthwa ngelolu bandla letelikhetfo nemingcele EBC bese chubeka ke nemsebenzi lobitwa ngokuthi vetting process lapho khona libandla belisabuka abanconywa ukuthi balungile invele kungenela likhetfo nakubuka nje tindzaba ukuthi umthelo babhadala kahle nokuthi ngabe beyiteni ma criminal charges nokuthi ngabe baphilile kahle engcondweni lokuveleleke imibiko levelelekile ukuthi babe ngo-27 laba disqualified ukuthi abaphumelele kulungenela likhetfo kanti laba bafaka labo labafisa ukuba ngema MPs kanye netindvunate tinkhundla kepha kusichazela kabanti sinaye lapha EBC Communications Officer Mbonisi Pembe atosichazela kabanti Pembe sema ukuthi benathi lo mhla ekseni kungaba kuva nje ukuthi vele i-vetting process yakumele ukuthi nayo le process vele kumele yendiwe ebalekile imcoka ingaba vele mhlambe yona ihambe kanjani.
Siqale kuvusela wena emnguni sivusele emaswati lamahle emagumbini lamane omhlaba nembala libandla kulandzela linani lelikhulu lebantfu lelaphakanyiswa ngomlanga lamhla ka-22 na 23 July labe selihlala phasi liyabuka kulamabito libuka limuva labo njengaloku sokuvedile ukuthi kunetindzaba temthelo kunetindzaba tebucala kunetindzaba tebudlelwane nahulumende ma government contracts temntoba tebudlelwane kuloyo nesisebenzise sahulumende nesisebenzisela ukhetfo lekutinvo letilibandla lebelisolo litibuka kubo laba bekunene kwase kuyatfolakala ukuthi labaphumelele bayedlula etinkulungwaneni letintsatfu namakhulu lamane 3400 kuletigaba totimbili lapho khona 1800 sikhanza ukuthi indvuna yenkundla bese kuthi 1400 600 kuba malunga eParliament lasetawucutselana ngalomhla ka26 August lapho khona sibheke ukuthi ngesikhungo sekuvota nobe yebo ngemphakathi kutawuphumelela umuntu abe munye lesi sitabe sesichubeka naye esigabeni sekukhankasa siyofika nasesigabeni selukhetho lwesibili secondary election.
Okay, ngabe mhlambe nanisenda nje le vetting process nje kubuta nje bayabhembe ukuthi vele abaningi nebakhanze ukuthi kube yini lenkinga ngoba ngathi ukuthi nibuka umthelo ukuthi ubabhadala kahle niphindze nibuke nemacala mhlambe labhekene nawo la pending mhlambe nenzaba yokuthi are they mentally okay ngabe mhlambe yini lenikhanzile vele mhlambe lebe inkinga kakhulu kulaba lenibavethile.
Ya bekuhlangene kepha ke akuyifaki lenzaba yalaba ngaphili kahle engcondweni ikakhulu ngoba siphinze futhi sibe nesifo ngale ekubhaliseni ukuthi uma ngabe kukhona umuntu lokutholakala ukuthi akaphili kahle engcondweni naye akafanele ukuthi abhalise lisibambisile ke litiko letempilo ukuthi lisivetele ukuthi leluhlu lwebantu lababhalisile ukuthi bayokhetha kude munye labamfakile ngale ebantwini lokuthiwa abalungele ukuthi bangaba ingcenye yabantu laba tawukhetha ukuthi isimo sabo asiphili. Utawukhumbula ukuthi umthetho uphinze uthi uma se lo mvulo sekatholakala ukuthi sowuphilile engcondweni ubese litiko liyaveta lokuthi awusowuphilile lowe kunene sesingakhona kumbuyisela lokwenda ukuthi angeke nje sibapenda ngelibrush linye sithi uma ngabe umuntu longaphili engcondweni so yawuhlala angaphili engcondweni kuze ayoshona sikhona lithuba lokuthi angaphila ngalinye ilanga abuye abe ingcenye yalo likhetho sisebende nayo sive simethembe mangabe sesimethembile singamncoma simkhethe futhi sichubeke nekusebenta naye.
Okay. Kepha eseninayo i-total number yabanconya ngiyakhumbula ukuthi iminyaka 2018 nancoma over 6204 ngabe mhlambe lo nyaka sethi khona intinombolo debanconya nje kuleli khefu lo nyaka.
Ngalokuthi lohlelo solo sichubeka nalo lekuyohlola ikakhulu bona boqopho siseka benato inombolo lesingadivetela sive ukuthi nasebaphelele labanconyiwe ngalokho semthethweni bangakanani kepha na ubuka lelinani bebalunguta ngetulu kwa 7000 webantu labaphakanyisiwe kulolu khetho lamhla ka22 na 23 lapho khona sithi hawu bekunene abasiside ngoba bese sekuba khona lelisasasa nobe sekuba khona lengaphungaphu baba excited sebaze bendana letinye batsinza letimvulo kungakafanele ukuthi batitsinze siyacela nje ukuthi ikakhulu nanaba la sebathinyalo sebaphumelele sebabonakala emiphakathi simikisile emaphepha abo kude ku Silver Steward ukuthi baphumelele abahlale ngendvombi licala limbula ingubo lingene asifisi ukuthi singathi sisiya elikhethweni lokucala lo mhla ka26 ukhanze ukuthi lo munye ngesento sakhe lesithide out of excitement so uze wenda nobe waba khona timbula tikhulumako le ukhanza ukuthi tihabarisha enzabeni ukuthi so uyokhankasa kanzi umthetho osekelo nemithetho loluselkhetho ukuthi sithe sigaba sekuthi singakhankasa kule primary election siyacela ukuthi eMaswati amane ahlale ngendvombe aticize achubeke nje kusebenta umsebenzi yabo yasekhaya mangabe basolo basematohweni bachubeke kahle ematohweni siyawubanika sigaba sekuthi sebahlonishwa uma sebaphumelele esigabeni selkhetho lwesibili.
Usakhuluma nje indzaba yekukhankasa ababebhembe ngiyakhumbula ukuthi manisenda le voter education nisavakashela nje tindzawo letiningi lapha even nifundzisa ngalo lelikhetho I think lenye indzaba lenkhulu nje sivele sakhala ngayo indzaba yekuthengwa kwamavoti kubuda nje babhembe ukuthi ngabe vele mhlambe ikhona yini indlela vele eBC la ngakhona kuyingenelela lena ndzaba yokuthi vele mhlambe lokho kuthengwa kwamavoti kunciphe noma kume ikhona vele mhlambe leningakwenda nini is it possible vele
kude libandla lelingakwenda loku bantu labangakwenda ngisosive lesingenda ukuthi lo mkhuhlane ume bantu labamukelako tiphe kulaba la kuthi wabawunga ekukhetheni kuba ngilesive masive singema lokuthi simukele sive futhi nasingema lokuthi bese sesiyawubasukela laba lasebaphakanyisiwe ukuthi ngoba naku sikuphakamisile salungcolisa litafula i-weekend sibuya ku-weekend lenkulu kakhulu nje ukhathi ukuthi sesiyatendela nathi emibangweni ukuthi awusasibe nayo bahlonishwa nobe labanconyiwe abasendele njalo ngumkhuhlane lo le sithi asivete sive ukuthi nebafana labacize kona kuthula emaphoyisa asebenta ngalokukhulu ukuthi khandla sivile tindzaba lapha nalapha ukuthi labanye babakhanzile ecotsheni benda imihlangano lengekho emthethweni labanye bapha abantu lokutsite ngalokungekho emthethweni akukavinjwa lokuthi abantu bangalithola lusido bakalithola lusido abantu balandzela timiso letingito well structured means lapho khona nangabe sisemiphakathi tikhona tindvuna tikhona tindlunkulu lapho khona lukhona luhlelo lolubekiwe ukuthi uma ngabe kukhona sipho lesifikile singena njani endlunkulu babe usihambisa njani kuya lapho siya khona asisebenziseni leto tindlela leto lapho khona utawukhanza ukuthi nobe sekuthi kusasa uyasoleka utawutholakala ukuthi cha lokhu wakuletha ngesadla lesingiso nemphakathi kwakusebenza kahle leyo ndzaba leyo sesithi nje lesikuvetako sive lesingavimba lenkohlakalo yekukhankasa lokungekho emthethweni ukuthi bangavumeli laba labakhethiwe ukuthi babanike lutho nabo bangemukeli lapho ke sesitawukusho ukuthi kutababetele demand ngako kude umuntu lotawukhanza ukuthi so yakhona kuwenda lo msebenzi lo.
Okay, sisaya nje kuma primary babe Bhembe ngiyakholelwa ukuthi mhlambe vele nemalungiselelo sekasetulu ngifuna ukuthi nje indzaba yalaba labakhobatekile ngakumele simemetela ukuthi labakhobatekile labangu-8 labatawuniketa thuba ukuthi nabo kube khona umsebenzi abawutfolako kuma-primary elections ingabe vele mhlambe allocate-ile mhlambe ukuthi batabe basebenta kuphi batabe basebenta ini
lembala libandla selakwenda lokho ngetulu kwaloko libandla lifuna ukuthi lilethe lusito ikakhulu kulaba labangeva itindlebeni ngekuletha sign language service lokhu ke sekuseceleni kulo 8 lokukhuluma ngayo ngoba lo 8 bongakhanza ukuthi sithatha nje umuntu lokhubatekile siyamnikisa kunobe ngangumuphi umphakathi kepha lokhu lesesikhuluma ngako nyalo ngilokhu tawube kubuke lokuthi bakuphi labantu labakhubatekile labafuna lokuthi bakukhuluma babe nalendlela yokukhuluma ngetandla utawuconza ukuthi sisengakabi nalo lolwimi lube lolwimi lolusemthethweni kepha nalabafundzele basebancane kakhulu bese lapha nje sikhuluma nentombi yala ekhaya Boloma Cabiso ngebumcoka bawona lo msebenzi lowo solo sifuna dona tindlela ukuthi sisonzela tutane kanjani siyabambisana nabo bemagubu ukuthi sithole lokuthi bangakuphi labantu ukuthi nasisiletha lolusito lube lolutawucondzana nabo ngco luhlukahluke kulolu lebesikhuluma ngalo ukuthi batawuthola umsebenzi lapha sesithi sesibalethela le sign language service emthombeni.
Okay, kwagcina nje babe Bhembe kukhumbuta nje sive ukuthi vele ama-primary anini nekuthi into ebhekekile nje vele sisayi
mhla ka-26 August sitabe sinawo ama-primary elections ethu lapho sive lithi libandla selilungisile tindzawo leti over 700 polling stations lapho khona eMaswati atawuvota khona siphindze saba nawo nema-streams lendela ukuthi emalayini atawuba amafishane eMaswati kutawuthi from 7 to 7 akhone ukuthi avote ngalokukhulu ukuphuthuma nalabajaka emisebenzini bakhona kufika ekseni bavote bachubeke emsebenzini nala sebabuya emsebenzini bakhanza ukuthi emalayini aphatheka kahle bayavota bayachubeka siyabe sisiyawubala ke futhi ngayo nanomhla ka27 August lapho khona sitawuphuma nabo labaphumelele sesiya nabo elikhethweni lwesibili secondary election etabe imhla ka29 September.
Okay, ngiyavakala simakhulu babe Bhembe embukele sothi vele ukuthi sele nje amalanga lamancane ukuthi siye elikhethweni ma primary elections tabahlathe make sana sibuya sichubeka nehlelo.
It's after 7. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. The Eswatini Economic Update was held at the Hilton Garden Inn on Monday, where the World Bank Economic Report was presented officially by World Bank Country Director Marie-Francoise Nelly, who emphasized the role that SOEs can play in the government's efforts to enhance economic performance. She says that both their contribution to the economy as well as their limitations can suggest directions for reform. She says without significant reform, Eswatini is unlikely to achieve its economic and social aspirations, especially in this uncertain external environment. Let's listen to her presenting her remarks.
So we are really happy today to present this first ever economic update for the Kingdom of Eswatini. And I think that my colleagues have already given you the title that gives you a hint of what we are going to talk about, state-owned enterprises. But I would like to start by reminding you that the World Bank, of course, it's a bank and it's always known for its financing. But today we want to stress another dimension of our engagement, which are our knowledge products. And in our knowledge products, we have the analytical work, and which allow us indeed to which allows us to do reform advocacy, but more importantly, generate a platform for policy dialogue. But beyond this analytical work, let me say that our knowledge product, and I'm actually proud to say that it's really allowing us to connect our countries to other countries, both in the region and globally, what we call the South-South exchange. And just to mention something that is relevant for the Kingdom, during the spring meetings of the World Bank and the IMF, we facilitated an exchange between the Minister of Finance of Jamaica and the Minister of Finance of Eswatini and Lesotho to look at how Jamaica, which is facing, as you are aware, significant cyclone, natural risk, how do they manage to establish a financing platform that allow them to be ready for that. And I think that we have planned to invite actually the minister to the sub-region. And already I see that Minister Neil has already incorporated some of the lessons in the way the Kingdom is prepared itself in an environment when we say that we have extreme shocks given of the climate change. We also organized a visit that I led just in the month of June in Uruguay with a delegation this time not of Eswatini but Botswana and Namibia, so that they could see how a small country like Uruguay, I mean, you may not know that Uruguay is 3.5 million people and Botswana is a little bit less than 2.4, so 1 million less. They are able to provide food to 40 million people with the way they have developed the value chain. So again, lesson learned and partnership. And I just want to stress that because very often we think of the World Bank just financing and we discuss the terms and the condition, but we are doing a little bit more than that. And what we agreed during the launch and as part of this new strategy is that that will be the fundamental way of working. And of course, this means that showing what the Kingdom is doing well. We will have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about it. But I did say that the Kingdom managed to have the connection on electricity from 5% to 80%, in about 15 years. We have a number of countries that are behind. So it is important, of course, to go to 100. But the point is that these steps are quite acknowledged and should be shared with other countries in the region on how to do it, as we are now looking at the SDGs and meet the 100% by 2030. So coming back on the analytical work, I would like to say that as a global institution, we produce global reports, and perhaps the one that you know most is the Global Economic Prospect that is produced biannually, that provides global development and prospect for emerging economy, but also focusing on topical challenges. And the past few ones have focused, as you can imagine, a lot on the impact on COVID, on so many dimensions of development. And they are, of course, available on our website. We also produce regional reports. And I would like to mention, in the case of the countries that I'm in charge of, the SACO, we did produce a very interesting, important report on inequality last year that explained where the region stands and will project itself. And we are, as we speak, embarking on doing a report, a regional report on the drivers of growth for the SACO region that will be then expanded to the broader SADC region. But today we are here to talk about country reports. And we do produce country reports, country economic update, that are usually done annually, but also sometimes biannually. And we hope that in the case of the Kingdom, as I mentioned, this is our first that we hope will be established as a common practice, because we think that this report helps not only to provide the World Bank views on recent economic developments and outlook, but more importantly, they usually focus on a technical topic, and a topic that is relevant for the country at the moment. So that provides, therefore, independent and timely analysis, and it also allows to connect the country to global development, and you will see in the case of this first report how we refer to global approaches. And it's finally established a community of stakeholders. I think that we have a number of representatives of academia and think tanks in this room, and we are hoping that this type of approaches can develop really the platform for really informing policy reform agenda, policy debate, reaching agreement of what is useful for the countries. For this first economic update, the special topic is state-owned enterprises. And we know that this is a topic that is very important for the government, and particularly for its current policy agenda. And we are very, very exciting, as I said. It is the first, but it's not the last. We will continue and deepen this new approach. And particularly, we hope that the findings of the report will support the ongoing discussions and the next step in the implementation of the macro, fiscal, and SOE reform that the government is taking. And I want to use the opportunity to, Minister Neil, acknowledge the work that you initiated yourself to make this first assessment, understand the perimeter of the state-owned enterprise and public enterprise in the Kingdom, and engaging in designing a reform agenda. Of course, the challenge is to transform this agenda in real implementation, because, of course, it will have an implication, as the report will show, on the prospect of growth and inclusion in the coming years. I would like to also mention, in terms of consultation, that our team has worked very closely and in close consultation with a number of stakeholders within the government and the broader society. Let me use the opportunity to express our appreciation as a World Bank team to the colleagues for the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development, the Public Enterprise Unit, the Eswatini Revenue Services, the Central Bank of Eswatini, for the excellent collaboration that we have experienced through the preparation of the report. Now, coming to the findings, I'm not going to say much because we have an eloquent team led by our macro manager, Marco Hernandez, that will present to you this element. But I just want maybe to highlight the fact that one of the key findings of the report is that both the Kingdom and the SACO countries are trapped in a low growth path. So it's a very important, observation, and we hope that the report argues actually that the SOE reform, the state-owned enterprise reform, can be a key element to boost economic growth for the Kingdom. So as I mentioned already, we are, in addition to this country report, preparing the drivers of growth report. So I would say stay tuned on this one. And we know that this report will again provide new elements as we try to bring our countries, help our countries move to the next level of development in this very challenging global environment that we are aware of. We are also preparing a public expenditure review that will also look at the efficiency of funding, the efficiency of budget implementation, and we hope that it will lead to proposals that will entrench fiscal sustainability of the kingdom.
There was a World Bank country director, Mary Francois, she's clearly emphasizing the need to making state-owned enterprises more efficient in that it will reduce, the reliance on public funding as well as boosting the private sector-led growth. Let's listen now to Finance Minister Neil Reichenberg, who said that government of Eswatini does welcome this report and that it is determined to implement a series of policy reforms to unlock the potential of the private sector and improve the efficiency of SOEs. Given higher Southern Africa Customs Union revenue in 2023, he says that the establishment of the SACU Revenue Stabilization Fund will help to mitigate future unexpected shocks as well as to promote microeconomic stability. Let's listen to Finance Minister Neil Reichenberg.
When I became Minister of Finance, we found ourselves in a tough situation. We were having like 6 billion emalangeni of arrears. Our fiscal deficit was at 7.5%. Wage bill, 42% of our spend. And there are a few of those indicators that were really, really putting us in a very tough position. And we were really battling. We were underwater as government and not knowing how to get out of it. With close collaboration with the World Bank and the IMF and African Development Bank, but really the World Bank taking a lead role in that, we developed what we call the medium-term framework and a fiscal framework to be able to say if we need to get from here to there. And one of the key indicators, for instance, fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is obviously the gap between the money that you spend and the money that you have as a government. And our fiscal deficit at that point was 7.5%. And we set ourselves a goal to say, let us try and get this down to 1.5%. Everyone who saw our framework said it's way too aggressive. Countries battled to do 1% a year, and we had an ambition of doing 2% per year for those 3 years. At the same time, the World Bank provided us funding, because now the problem is with that gap is you actually need loans, you need money to close that gap every year, growing your debt, which is again not advisable, and if you don't close that gap, your debt just spirals, and you end up, as unfortunately many African countries find themselves in terribly unsustainable debt portfolio. And when you get to that point, you're ultimately taking loans to repay interest, and when you get into that space, you find yourself in very, very real trouble as governments. And so we worked very hard on that strategy and on that plan. And even though we weren't anticipating COVID, we weren't anticipating the Ukraine-Russia issues, we weren't anticipating the unrest we had in Eswatini, all those things hit us during this time. But over that period, and some of the measures were not possible. Some of the measures we did better than what we expected to do. Because at that point, we still thought we'll be able to close 2% of the gap by increasing taxes. But obviously, because of the pain that we went through, increasing taxes is just not possible. You really can't increase taxes in a time that you're going through such very, very difficult times. But working very closely with the World Bank providing even loans to us during this time, loans with a very clear, I remember being on some of the most stressful things I've done as a minister is trying to fulfill these triggers that the World Bank had to be able to access this funding. But ultimately, doing the right thing so that you don't, so by the time you get the loan, you actually have put the right things in place. One has managed to get to what we are calling to a 2.2% fiscal deficit, but the World Bank's numbers, I think, are 0.3%. As Eswatini, our SACU Stabilization Fund, we are putting the money into the fund outside of the budget, which is not correct from a macro fiscal point of view. It really should be in the budget, but hence ours is saying 2.2% fiscal deficit, and the World Bank is saying 0.3%. And with us doing certain things, for instance, the SACU Stabilization Fund, which we put in place, that really should actually be able to mean that we can put ourselves onto that sustainable path and remain there. And I really believe, and I want to thank the World Bank for that, actually stand up and say thank you for all that strong support that we've got there. There's a lot of things we need to fix in Eswatini, but a lot of our macros have actually we've got a lot better with them. And I do believe that with the support of yourselves and guidance and debt support in that time, we actually have managed to put ourselves on a sustainable path and now no longer need budget funding We have project funding going forward, but we are hoping not ever really to take funding to be able to fund the budget or fund recurrent expenditure into the future. And we really sincerely hope that we'll be able to remain in that place. So just on the first part of the report, just the economic update, I think it is all very good for us to have a look at, very good for us to understand the risks that have been highlighted there, and we appreciate that. The second part of the report is the SOE reforms. And I think in Eswatini we do have, and even though we need to do reforms, I don't want that to sound like our SOEs are necessarily all in trouble. That's not the case. We have, I'll maybe even refer to one or two SOEs that are really performing very, very well, and I'll try and refrain from referring to any that are under the Ministry of Finance. So I'll use EEC as an example. EEC, when trouble hit with COVID, EEC was in profit-making territory. EEC was getting double-digit increases on the cost of electricity coming to EEC. EEC managed to cushion that increase and managed to pass virtually for 2 years during the peak, during the height of our pain as an economy, managed to cushion the increase in electricity tariffs through to the end consumer. Because the problem that we were having, household expenditure was under tremendous pressure and actually still is. We really believe with our budget that's now increasing with 14%, and it's actually been decreasing for a few years and now increasing for the first time. We feel the household expenditure will start feeling that relief, slowly, unfortunately. But the household expenditure pressure was extreme during that COVID period. And that cushion that EEC managed to do because of good behavior, because of profits that are being made by the entity, cushioning those impacts meant that our inflation remained constrained. So which means other countries, the inflation was just going through the roof. Not that we were comfortable with that inflation, but if you look at Eswatini's inflation compared to region, compared to world, we were doing very well. We're up there with the best. And it's because of entities like that. Had it not been for EEC managing to do that cushion there, we would have found our inflation at very, very different levels. And so just as an example, to say that when one does have good SOEs, good parastatals actually doing what they're supposed to do, and they're in good space, they really can do a huge amount to cushion pain when you have pain, and they really do help the economy from a macro point of view, not even micro point of view. From a macro point of view, really assisting to be able to do what they need to do. So, but at the same time, and obviously one's not going to name anything, at the same time, we do really need reforms within our SOEs. We have too many SOEs. We've got SOEs that we can privatize. We've got SOEs that we can merge. We've got SOEs that could come back into the ministries. We've tried. One needs to constantly, as government, look at with a fresh eye on things and have change. Governments are not great at doing change, but we need to try as Eswatini now do change whenever we need change, recognize the good, gain from the experience of good things that are happening in the economy, and then constantly apply that and constantly do what needed. And sometimes we see it like, one is somehow punishing entities. That's not at all the case. It is a matter of supporting the macroeconomy when we do this. So the path that we are on to do SOE reforms, we have started that. The first entities, what we're calling phase 1, is underway. And the World Bank's support during this process will be highly appreciated. And we know that the smarts and the deep dive that one does into this will really assist us as a country, make sure that we remain on that SOE reform path and actually can complete it. So just on that, just to thank the World Bank for this time. Thank you for the report. The report's going to really help us economy to move forward, and to wish the rest of the meeting and the deliberations and the panelists.
There was Finance Minister Neil Reichenberg just appreciating the assistance of the World Bank in assisting the Kingdom of Eswatini in getting back to a sustainable path, just highlighting how we have moved from a budget funding to project funding and attributing that to how we are now on a sustainable path. And of course also emphasizing and appreciating EEC and other companies that have helped to cushion the kingdom during difficult economic times and just maintaining us in a good level of inflation. And there was the World Bank economic report that was presented yesterday by World Bank to the Kingdom of Eswatini. We've come to the end of our program today. We do wish that you have a great day today and that you do join us once again tomorrow morning in Saleh.